Are podcasts important? Hi guys and welcome back in today's video. Today we speak about audiobooks and podcast and how a lot of people don't know about this and don't hear podcast or audiobooks. Before that I was starting my entrepreneurial journey, I never heard before a podcast or an online audio lesson or audiobook, nothing, zero. But when I discovered the podcast like the Tai Lopez show or other podcasts about entrepreneurs, social media, and how to increase the personal value and personal growth, I am literally addicted at podcast because it's you can hear when you are doing something else. When I was working at my job as a computer scientist, when I drive to school or to work, or when I return from the work or school to home, I will put in my car the podcast that I have on my phone. I connect the phone and I will hear podcast. For every day I am using the car. Now that I work from home, I don't have this time to go by car, but if I need to take my car, maybe do something or meet friends, I will put my podcast and hear a lot of information. The main way that I use podcast is when I go walking in the morning. I very like now that the weather is good and it's hot. I like go walking around my city and listening to the podcast. So I improve my health with a little walk or a run, and I improve my wealth because with podcast you will hear the words from the people that you wanna be. I hear the Tai Lopez podcast because Tai Lopez lifestyle, it's my goal. I want cars, I want freedom, I want to earn online and other thing like this. But the majority of people never heard podcast in her life, and this is crazy because listening to podcast it's like a conversation with successful people. You can't tell question, but that successful people that created the podcast will give you all the knowledge and all the information that you need and you should have. I really like listening to podcasts. Sometimes I am playing on the phone, maybe after dinner or after lunch, and at the same time I heard podcast. So my time is not wasted playing video games because I play games and at the same time I will get more knowledge through podcast. Personally, I don't use audiobooks, but I read paper books. But they are also a great way to learn book. If you don't have time or if you don't like read in your car when you are in the traffic, you can hear your podcast or your audiobooks and you will get a lot of knowledge and tips. I also have an idea that I can create my podcast maybe on YouTube when I go walking. I I record myself speaking about something and I will put the audio on YouTube. Let me know in the comment if you like the idea and maybe I will try to do this if the microphone capture good my voice. I can try it. I take the podcast from iTunes. I go on iTunes on the categories of business and investments, self-development, and I will search for the best podcast. Some of one I hear it's the Tai Lopez show. the science of the social media, that will give you a lot of tips, statistics, and information on how to grow your social media. Then the Gary V podcast, and a lot of other the podcasts from Josh King Madrid, as you know, as Jet Set Fly, and all these entrepreneurs. I have the podcast on my phone that I can hear if I am waiting maybe at the restaurant, or if I drive, if I go walking. Maybe if you want to relax and get some good food on your table of home, you can play the podcast, or when you are cooking. I really like to hear podcast when I'm cooking, because if you have not a chef, you need to cook your food, and if you follow a healthy lifestyle, I need to cook every single food, and I don't go to the restaurant. So my time for cooking is like 30 minutes for every meal, and in these 30 minutes I will see a YouTube video or I hear a podcast, so I can learn at the same time that I am cooking, and I call it time optimization, because you can do more things in once. For my phone, I use the application Podcast Republic, because I have an Android, I don't have an iPhone, so I can't have the Apple Music. I simply go on my computer, I copy the link of the podcast on iTunes, and I will export it on my phone. And if I follow one show, maybe the Tai Lopez show, every time an episode will get released, my phone automatically download this new podcast. Thanks for watching. I hope I opened a new world for you, and you start to learning more through podcast and audiobooks. Let me know in the comment if you already are listening podcast, or when you like listening to podcast, and like the video and subscribe to the channel for see more daily tips, business tips, and how to improve your life in simple way as an entrepreneur. See you in the next video.